Right. So in the last video, I mentioned general counsel, leveraging the general counsel, and basically legal issues around absorbing and selling services, and just being aware of the legalese, the contractual languages, and any liability you might have there. Often the only interaction I see with legal departments is around compliance, so such as ISO or NIST compliance or SOC compliance or TISAX compliance or whatever. And it's based on the fact, not that it's important to be compliant to these things, or it is important to be compliant to these things, but not for the sake of compliance, just because it is a business requirement. There is a contract somewhere that mandates that you have that compliance. Now, you having that compliance, however, does not mean you are not liable for negligence. Most organizations, most mid-sized to large organizations, have some level of, here in Europe, ISO certification. You never hear about it after they are breached. They all exclaim, we are secure, we have ISO this, we have SOC that, we have this and that and that and that. And then they get breached and you never hear it mentioned. And when I used to audit, I think I've talked about this before, I found 100%. Now, this was not a regular conventional audit in what we're used to in security. This was finding negligence so insurance providers wouldn't have to pay. And it was 100% successful. And most of these places had some ISO certification in place most of the time, but that wasn't what made them negligent. They had scoped ISO to be a certain thing. And but you hadn't checked this or that, which allowed you to be breached. Your ISO didn't extend to your marketing department or your legal department or your sales department or your engineering function or whatever else got you compromised. It didn't extend to how you were handling paper documents somewhere, which allowed someone to go dumpster diving and bypass all your controls because they had the credentials. That's still a degree of negligence that you can have without ever having to, while still being ISO compliant according to your scope. And then even within the scope, we all know that we like to fluff those numbers a bit and just pass the audit. I mean, I've seen just about every organization I've worked in is like, it's a bit of a frenzy a month before the audit, but after that, not much happens until the next audit. And those gaps tend to get closed up and embellished just before the audit, which obviously the attackers are not going to care about. So I think it's very, very important to consider that, that exposure, that you still have that legal liability, at least if you're facing up with someone clever, and also to leverage it. Just because something we see very, very often is that security teams will try to push or use ISO compliance, for example, as leverage to get some resource, to get some things done. Oh, we have to do it because of ISO. Oh, we need to buy this because of ISO. But the problem is then that they get ISO and then management just tunes out. Say, oh, but we have ISO, we're secure. I've been asked so many times, why do we have a security team? Why are we hiring all these people? We have, we're ISO compliant. We've passed it. We're secure. You're not. And unfortunately, that's because it's what we use to justify the spending on security. We've done it now, so the assumption is, well, we've done it, we're now secure, you don't need anything else, and management focuses on different things, and you get stuck there. So it's one way of arguing, yes, we're ISO, but we're not free of liability yet, so we have to continue the investment. And again, it's not just about money. I always say, I would have traction over budget 90% of the time, but it's that investment in traction, in belief, in support, so you can go address the underlying issues, and that little bit of operational security as well, which you always have that residual risk as well. So liability does not stop at your certification. That's the gist of it. And if you can make them understand that, then that can help you. I like to say compliance, that kind of compliance, ISO compliance, it's like having a driver's license. I live in the UK. Everyone has a driver's license. No one can drive. You can still have an accident, happens every day. So there you go.